All right, Steve, we'll start with you. What do you make of the roundup there?
Well, they're so full of it, aren't they, these Democrats and the Trump haters in the media, because, you know, they can barely get through the rote statements about how they're really concerned about the president and the first lady before really getting to the politics, which is what they want to say along, which is this proves our point. Trump was wrong all along. We were right all along. He deserves it because it's basically the consequence of his policies. They're all dying to say that. I wish they wouldn't even bother going through the fake statements of their concern. All they're thinking about is the politics. And I think they're wrong to assume that the politics is going to work out in their favor, because actually we still have a month to go to the election. Remember, in 2016, at this stage of the election, we hadn't yet had the Access Hollywood tape. We hadn't had the Comey announcement of reopening the email investigation. There's a lot that could still happen, of course, primarily with the president's health. If he recovers, as we all hope that he does, then that really turns this into a completely different story about how he, Donald Trump, beat the virus and how he can lead America through to beat the virus and get to a full recovery. So I don't think they should be celebrating quite yet that this is going to turn out in their favor politically.
Okay, this is what Piers Morgan tweeted. He said, it's interesting to see those who've spent the last few years screaming that Trump is an uncaring, heartless, empathy-devoid blank, now spewing their gleeful joy that he and his wife have a deadly virus. They're no better than the man they loathe. Kevin, what about that? I mean, we've taught, you know, some of these folks have said the president uses these words, he goes after people, he uses harsh rhetoric, and now we're seeing some of that from the left.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Democrat that goes on Fox News, so I never read the Twitter comment section in terms of what folks say out there in the media landscape.
Very smart.
You know, I fundamentally reject any kind of comments about the president's health. We all need to bound together and support this president. I think you're seeing that tact from former President Obama, who released a really compelling statement. Of course, you played the video with the former Vice President Joe Biden in Grand Rapids, Michigan, praying for the president and his family. I do believe that's sincere. He is a churchgoer. He's a strong Catholic, and I do think that is sincere. Listen, we want the president on that debate stage. We want to be taking the fight to this president over these next couple of weeks, because as Steve says, there's a lot of ground left in this month. You know, tomorrow is a month to the election, and a lot of things can happen, as he rightly points out, with the Access Hollywood tape, with the Comey letter, and of course the president probably does not want to be focusing on coronavirus and COVID. This, as we've talked about before in this previous segment, is not an area of strength for this president. He'd much rather be talking about the jobs report today and the Supreme Court nomination, but of course we can't escape it with this kind of coverage.
Mm-hmm. And Kevin, we appreciate you coming on. It gets a little heated sometimes, but we always appreciate that you're here to have that conversation with us. I want to play something from another Democrat. This is Tim Ryan, a congressman out of Ohio. He was talking about basically what he says is the arrogance of President Trump, and that this, the fact that he has now been open enough and you know, the Ryan accusation is that he's flouted safety rules, and that's how we got here. Here's a little bit of Congressman Ryan.
They don't pay their taxes. They don't have to wear masks. If they have trouble with the porn star, they pay it off. Like, there's nobody being held accountable. And it's just so irresponsible. This was being hosted by the Cleveland Clinic. Like, we weren't at some bar somewhere. We were being hosted by Case Western Reserve and the Cleveland Clinic. And they walk in without masks. It was really a level of arrogance you rarely see.
Brad, your response.
Well, you know, another tinfoil hat, quack politician trying to be a doctor. He doesn't know how the president contacted it. It wasn't the president's fault. It's nobody's fault. The pandemic has a way of infecting our population in ways that even, baffle doctors and scientists. We're using common sense methods in order to mitigate the damage not only to our population, but also in coming up with new and inventive ways for prophylactics and a vaccine in record time. Donald Trump has saved millions of lives. Democrats never talk about that. So I think a little more science and a little less politics by politicians would make a lot of sense.
Okay, so with the president off the campaign trail, we've talked about how he gets energy from that. He likes being out there, that we're in this, really tight time crunch. But Steve, when you talk about all the events that happened in the same time period back in 2016, I sort of get the vapors because I don't know how much more we can take heading into this. But the fact is, a lot of people are already voting. They're out there, they're in lines, they're turning in mail-in ballots. I mean, there's so much time left to play out when you think about all those things that occurred back in 2016. How does this potentially affect the early vote situation, do you think?
Well, I think the people who are voting early are likely to be the people who really know where they stand in this election, and their minds are made up. They're keen to go out there and vote. They're not waiting for the campaign. They're not waiting for a rally or a debate. They just want to vote because they already know how they're going to vote. And I think there's a lot of people in that camp. I don't think it's going to affect them that much. And remember, the real key to this election, if you look at the way the dynamics of the campaign and the mechanics are playing out, is not really, as is often said, persuading undecided voters. There's very few of those left. It's actually all about turning out not just your base, but people who are like those who are in your base who didn't vote last time, and trying to persuade them to vote this time. And so I think that this could actually play out, again, I would say, in the president's favor, because there's a group of people that instinctively are on his side. They may not have voted last time. This could actually mobilize them. And I think that's what the campaign will be looking to do, with or without the rallies and all the things that we've got used to. So it's early days, really, because there's still time to get those people out.
Well, the campaign manager, Bill Stepien, again, since we've gone on the air, news has broken, he's tested positive. They say they will use a number of subordinates to be out there who will go out and share the message, who will be stand-ins for the president, including the vice president, who has tested negative thus far. So we'll see as the campaign plays out in a very, very unusual year. Brad, Kevin, and Steve, thank you all.
Thank you,
Thanks, Shannon.
Okay, the power of prayer in what are some very anxious times. That's next.